Welcome to the Open Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
These shows are brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. Well, Heidi, we've got some guests on today talking about a tough subject, which is infant loss, and really tough, but they are wonderful people, and we've known both of them, and the organization First Candle is going to be represented, and we got an award from them a few years ago.
We did, and it's an amazing organization, Mom. And like you said, we got an award, but what I like about it is I feel that child loss, baby loss, and infant loss particularly is so minimized. Mm-hmm. Because people didn't know the infants oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, there's not a lot of support, I think, for people that have had an infant loss.
Mm-hmm. And also, people are generally fairly young if they've just had a baby, and they may go on to have another one or whatever. Or people may think, well, you can have another one, or, you know, like it was replaceable or something.
I had 2 miscarriages, and what I found was that people would say things like, at least you're still young, at least, you know, you can get pregnant, at least you can have another baby, at least you have a son already. So there was a lot of at least, and that just served to minimize what was going on, and I felt very unsupported.
Mm-hmm. We'll introduce our guests, because they
will.
both had early child loss, and they're going to give you some wonderful tips and thoughts about it.
Absolutely. So we have 2 guests today, Nicole Alston and Alison Jacobson. And let's start with Nicole. Nicole is right here.
Hey, Nicole.
I met Nicole many years ago. She was actually a student in my class at Columbia University. And at the time, she was very different than the other students because she was the founder of the Sky Foundation. And it was a tribute to her daughter that died. So she was already very much involved in the grief and loss world. And she is also the founder and president of OK to Grief, and is a recruitment coordinator for the Complicated Grief and Older Adult Study. She's done that as well. So she's been very involved. And she's also on the Walking Through Grief series with us.
Right.
We did a Walking Through Grief series for those out there that want to watch it with Glenn Lord, and Nicole was one of the people on it that talked about baby loss. So welcome, Nicole, to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome,
so
Nicole.
much.
It's great to see you again, and great to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
And sitting next to Nicole is Alison Jacobson, who is the CEO of First Candle. And so she is building awareness for miscarriage, child loss, infant loss. And for both of them, I've got to say, they sent me pictures of their babies. And it made it just very real for me. Mm-hmm. Alison lost Connor of SIDS, and he was so cute. He was this big, fat, round, chunky, like very healthy baby. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds weird to say, but very healthy baby. And you know, I've known Nicole for years and have never thought to ask for a picture of Sky. Mm-hmm. I think it's like we kind of hesitate. And she sent me a picture of herself pregnant, which was a beautiful picture, and then of Sky, who was just the most perfect baby.
And we're showing that on the show today.
And I think I was kind of like, whoa. I don't know why I was taken back, but I think seeing pictures with Connor and Sky just made it all that more real. And I was like, these were babies, and these babies lived. Mm-hmm. And even though maybe people out there didn't know them, they were here. Mm-hmm. So anyway, and I'm sure they can shed more light on that for us.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, both of you, and how many years has it been for you?
It's been
Alison?
21 years.
Yeah, and how many for you?
13.
Okay, so it's been a while. You've kind of had a chance to think about it, and I know you've both gone on to do fabulous things. And what I want to know is, how did you do it? I mean, how did you go from that sudden loss? Do you want to start with us?
I will. You know, I'm asked that frequently, and I credit my mother with helping me because, like you said, Connor looked so healthy. So it wasn't as if I had any forewarning of this.
Right.
It was literally like a light went off. It was that quick. So I didn't have time to prepare myself. And I think the only way I got through it was literally congratulating myself for just making it through every second of the day. Mm-hmm. Because if I tried to even look forward to a week, it would have been too overwhelming. So I literally congratulated myself when I could get out of bed, if I could just put on clothes. And it was those small, little incremental steps. And I liken it to when you're recuperating or recovering from major surgery, right? You can't do it all at once. You have to take those baby steps and also understand that you are going to have setbacks. And you are going to have those days with a pity party. Now, I think I felt fortunate because Connor was my first. So it wasn't as if I had to think about other kids. I was able to experience my grief
Yeah.
And I think that was very important because so often we push the grief aside and eventually it will come out.
I want to talk to you, after we talk to Nicole, I want to come back to something you just said, which you were fortunate was your first child. I want to talk about, that's kind of a scary thing, and I think your first child was Scott too.
That's correct.
So let's come back around to that after we hear a little bit of Nicole. How did you get through it? How have you done it?
Well, I should say that I had a miscarriage prior to Sky.
It was tough. It was very tough. I found myself 6 weeks later still pretty much just in tremendous pain, tremendous emotional pain, isolated from friends, isolated. I pretty much had checked out. And so I went on a partial fast for about 21 days. And during that time and that isolation, I felt that I was led to start a foundation. And so I was just following, it was like I was just following the steps. You know, one day I, did the paperwork for it. The next day, maybe I got a phone number for it. And then I started working on a website. And I started traveling to conferences. And I mean, this was just really, by faith, going to conferences and speaking to people and networking. And then it really led me to travel the world, internationally talking about infant loss.
Now, people I know that are watching this show are going to want to know more about your fast. So my question is, did you have somebody work with you or did you do it on your own?
My husband and I, we did it on our own.
Oh, so you did it with your husband?
I did it with my
Because I was
husband,
thinking
yes.
it probably is important to have somebody involved with you.
Yes, that
Had
was
you done
helpful.
fasts in the past?
I have, yes.
Oh, okay.
But it was,
How do you?
that one was different, though.
Yeah. But what
Yeah.
comes up for me, though, Heidi, is people need to use the things that they've used.
Right, that have worked in the past?
Yeah, that have worked in the past.
Yeah,
so
that's
so
true.
I like that. Well, let's get to that question that I was on, which was, it was your first child, so were you afraid about your second child and getting pregnant? And
Well, I
Having a
actually got
baby?
pregnant very quickly. So Connor died in August, and I was pregnant with my second son by September.
Wow.
And in some ways that was good, in some ways it wasn't. I knew I was going to have more children, so I wasn't trying to replace Connor. I
Right.
just knew I was going to have more children. However, the hormones that were still in my body from Connor, and then the hormones from being pregnant again, coupled with the grief, was tremendous.
Wow.
I think I had more fear before Spencer was born than after, because I felt that the likelihood of it happening again was minimal. However, that didn't stop me from pinching his feet every time and trying to wake him up, because there was that fear. And I think, like you said, you go back to what you knew. And for me, I always had very strong faith. And I had to believe that things were going to be okay. I knew I had done everything right the first time, and
Yeah.
unfortunately SIDS is unpreventable and unpredictable, so I had to believe it was going to be okay this time. But it has made me more of a cautious mom with everything.
And Nicole, your baby was born
Yes.
dead,
Yes.
right?
She was
And
stillborn on my due
Still
date.
born on your due date.
Yes.
So was that scary for you with your next child, going up to that?
Oh, definitely. In fact, I don't know the exact number, but I do know that more couples decide that they will go ahead and they are looking forward to having another baby. I was that small percentage that I just said, that was enough. Because it was devastating. And so we did get pregnant again. But yes, it was a very scary journey.
And was it scary delivering your daughter?
Yes.
I
Yes.
bet.
it's-
And just making sure she's going to be okay when
Right,
she's
exactly.
born.
Very much so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm just really emotional thinking about your husband being in the room. It must have been incredibly emotional when you heard her cry.
Yes.
With the-
very much so.
Yeah,
Very much so.
exactly.
Yeah, because just like you're saying, Alison, you can do, and that's kind of, this is kind of like a theme in life. How many times do we do everything right,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work out the way
Exactly.
we had hoped?
Yeah.
And that is sometimes some of the most painful chapters we experience in life. But that's not the whole book.
Well, and you both, it's like you both brought that up. We did everything right, and at the end of the day, our baby still died. And I think that is so important, because sometimes as moms, we can blame ourselves. Like, what did I do wrong? I always say with my mom, with my brother, when my brother died, my mom called me. And my brother was in D.C. when he died. My mom was in New York. and he was 17. So my mother calls me to apologize. And I said, Mom, you didn't do anything. You weren't even there. She said, I know, but moms are supposed to protect their kids. So it is, and even with me, with the couple of miscarriages I've had, I thought, what did I do wrong? I started doing a review, and I didn't do anything wrong. I was totally healthy.
Did you drink Coke? I remember
Yeah.
you said that.
Did I drink a Diet Coke? Did I do something wrong? I mean, I started questioning what could I have done to prevent it. And it, like you all said, at the end of the day, you know, bad things happen to good people. Kids die for no reason. I mean, this is just...
Well, and I think that's why it's so important for me at First Candle to always remind people to be the best parent they can possibly be. And there's definitely risk reduction measures, and that's something that we talk about. But
I like that.
one of the things that's most important for me is no blame, no shame. Right?
I like that.
We always try to do what's best, and we try to educate parents about what that looks like to reduce the risk and hopefully prevent accidental suffocation. But the other side of what we do is provide support through Facebook groups for stillbirth, miscarriage, and SIDS, because it's important to be there and be that shoulder.
Right.
I like that. I like the idea of being supportive yet providing education also, especially when you've been through this traumatic loss and you're going for the next baby. You just want to get everything you can, you know, and know everything you can.
Nicole, you've worked with complicated grief, and I know there are a lot of people that are watching this show and looking at you two and saying, wow, look at them, you know, how great they are. How long does it take, and when is it complicated? I mean, if I can't get out of bed 3 days later, or 4 days later, or 5 days later, or 2 weeks later, or 6 months later, when do I worry? Do people worry about me?
Right. Well, I mean, when you think about when a person should worry, you know, if they have complicated grief or not, there are certain markers that are used. I hesitate to use them when we talk about this kind of a loss, but usually it's after 6 months when a person, you know, continues to avoid people, places, you know, the things that are reminders of the death, extreme yearning and longing for the loved one who died, you know, a number of other things that kind of will prevent you from, you tend to feel a little stuck, like time is moving on, but you're not. So that could be, you know, that there are a number of things that can point to complicated
And don't
grief.
you like completely avoid certain areas and certain places that might remind you of something?
True. I can.
It's almost like you're really not functional in a lot of ways, right? Like career-wise, personally.
Right.
I'm always, it's always shades of gray because the child loss is such a different ball of wax. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Than other losses. I
Right.
mean, you just don't expect to bury your child.
Well, you're not going to go to, I can remember being invited to baby showers.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something I was not trying to do that. And I mean, even just going, there's so many triggers, you know, well, just come on over, and then, well, just come on out. Let's go to, somebody invited me out. I said, okay, finally, I'll get myself to go out to dinner. And, you know, there's a family there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just there's endless triggers.
And I think it's important to remember there's always going to be the triggers. I mean, it's 21 years later, but I was watching people and kids graduating high school saying, Connor should have been doing that.
Right.
You know, so all of those things that I got those milestones. And I often get asked, when does it stop? When does the hurt stop? It's not that it necessarily stops. It'll always come back, but it does. It does change.
You get over it
mellow.
faster too. I mean,
Yeah.
The pain, yeah.
but I want my heart to be touched.
Yes.
I mean, it touches your heart, and for a minute, that really hurts. But then it's that memory. They're still with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you rebound faster. But it is interesting because you had a daughter after your daughter died. You had a son after your son died. So, and you're making a good point about we grieve the future that we don't have. So, and I'm sure that the milestones with your second, you're thinking, oh, their sister and brother would have been this many years older, and they both were fairly close in age, right?
Yes,
I mean, how many
about
years?
2 years.
Okay, 2 years, and what about you?
Yeah, 11 months.
11 months. So yeah, so you can say, okay, they should have graduated high school now, and we thought they were going to be in college now, and this and that. So it's interesting that, like you said, milestones come up throughout your life course.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you both, how do you keep their memories alive for the other kids?
Oh, I like that. For the other kids, yeah.
So
like
I
that.
started immediately. We have a Christmas
Oh,
stocking
cool.
for Connor. And each kid gets something in their stocking that is a memory. It's Christmas ornaments. We send up balloons on his birthday. So each of kids, and I made it a point when they got into school to tell all the teachers, look, if my kids come home in and they say they have 3 siblings, they're telling you the truth. So we always acknowledge that. And I think it means something to them in a different way since they hadn't been born yet. But they do know they have a brother.
How about you, Nicole?
Well, every April 30th, we celebrate Sky's birthday. We have a cake, we'll do candles, we'll sing, happy birthday. But this is something throughout the year that the way we started with our daughter is that she's a part of our family. So, and she's always going to be a part of our family.
Yeah.
And so we're not hiding any pictures or anything like that. We're going to be open about talking about it. And so it's something that when it pops up, and she goes to school and she has told people she has, she had an older sister who died.
I love it because your kids are so comfortable with grief and loss. It's not taboo.
Exactly.
And my children know my brother through me, and they've never met him, and they're so comfortable. I mean, my son recently went on a grief cruise, and he's 20, to help out, Alan Peterson and Mitch Carmody, who were there. He was there to help them, and I was like, really? You want to go and help him? He's like, Mom, I'm used to it. This is my world. It's not taboo for me. So I love that our kids are so comfortable, and they're not going to shy away from adversity or for helping or shy away from helping people after loss because they're used to being in that world.
I wanted to say something else.
Yeah.
I think that with my experience with perinatal loss, and you have another child, well, Mommy, tell me about Sky. And you almost have to create a narrative based on what you know. I mean, for me, I knew her for 9 months.
Yes.
So I knew kind of that she liked, I didn't really eat meat, but when I was pregnant, I liked eating meat. There were certain things that she liked, and I had the craving. So and that's what I used for the funeral program. When I talk to her, I have to create that narrative for her, and I think that's a little different if you knew that Johnny liked to, play baseball and things like that.
I love that, Nicole. I love the idea that you can create a narrative because in utero you had that connection.
Yes.
That is very cool.
And I think I really applaud what you're doing because I think especially that we see at First Candle, when it comes to stillbirth, so many people don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
And it is so private. And I'll never forget when I first said I was CEO, somebody I had known for years came running up to me and said, I never told anyone I had a stillbirth, and now I feel like I could talk to somebody about it. So I think it is important showing that narrative and saying there is this life and there is a story, and I think that's so important.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting, when I had Sky and she was born still, I got a call from my grandmother who's now deceased, but she said, then she told me that she said, I also had a miscarriage.
Wow.
But it wasn't a miscarriage. And so the fact that she didn't even know that, she too had a stillbirth.
Yeah.
Wow.
She had a stillbirth but didn't have a name for it.
But didn't have a name for it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I worked with Nicole when she worked in a hospital in New Jersey with moms that had just had stillbirths, and you did some amazing work to build ritual for them and get little footprints and get little pictures and things that they maybe wouldn't have thought about doing because they were in severe grief and didn't know how to do it. And you made memory boxes too, right?
Well, right, we provided memory boxes, but and sitting bedside, I think, was the most important thing. Just having someone to be present with you at the time of the death, to be present with someone who's just had a baby that's 26 weeks and fighting for their lives and sitting in, and they knew the baby was going to die, but just spending those last moments with mom and the family who's ever is in the room. And that's really kind of how the whole initiative that we had talked about earlier came to be, just talking to moms. But even in that moment, no, you don't have to keep it moving right now. It is okay to grieve. It's okay to be present here.
And the rituals are interesting too, because so often people don't want to say your baby's name because they think it's going to upset you. And I always say, I love you asking about Connor. It's not like, they think for some reason they're going to remind you because you were forgotten. And it's like, no. And I want to hear it. I want to know that he is alive to all of you like he is to me. So I always encourage people, I've written blogs about how do you talk to your friend who's lost a baby. Say their name, ask about them. They want to be asked about them.
Now tell me where we find you on the web.
So we are at firstcandle.org. We also, you can go there and find our support groups through Facebook, and you can find information about our training now that we do, Safe Sleep for Infant training. And we also have something called the Safe Sleep Guardian program now, where we encourage bloggers and anybody taking pictures to always take pictures of babies in safe sleep environments, because we've got to get the right images out there so that parents know what that looks like. And that means nothing in the crib, no pillows, no blankets, no stuffed animals, no bumpers. And that alone can reduce the risk of SIDS by 50% and almost completely eliminate accidental suffocation. So firstcandle.org, you can find out all about it.
And I love the idea of having Facebook pages that people can get support on.
Yes.
And how about you, Nicole? Do you have some place on the web that you want people to contact you?
Yes, we're on Instagram, OK to Grieve, OK the number 2 Grieve, and doing a little bit on Twitter too, but mostly Instagram.
Okay.
We have a website coming soon.
Oh, good, great. We'll look forward to that. So if you've got one closing tip for someone who's just recently had an early loss, what would it be?
Share. Reach out to people and share. Don't keep it in, because that's what will make you physically and emotionally ill.
Yeah. Cool.
One last tip, I would say, know that you did the best that you could by your child. You did your very best, and to just embrace wherever you are.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. And now we've got a special treat for the audience, Heidi, because Denise Ganulin is going to be on our show, and she is a fabulous singer-songwriter, and we met her at the Compassionate Friends, and she is fantastic.
Yep, and she's going to sing Unexpected Turn in the Road, and it is in tribute to her daughter, Holland.
All right. And we want to thank you for watching this show today. We want to always remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.